Welcome back, Wolfpack. Verlis here, and this is how to use Rotom. So Rotom is one of my favorite Pokemon in the game. He's just an awesome Spazball, and that's one of the great things I love about it. Also, there's so much character development and growth behind this Pokemon. A lot of really good lore situations. Just the whole interaction of this Pokemon and any part of the franchise is really solid, and this Pokemon has so much development. Now, the direct development is not in the game. Now, when we look at just base Rotom, doesn't have the greatest stats, but here's where Rotom even gets more fascinating. That with all of its forms, that it uses its just natural ability as a plasma ghost Pokemon that possesses utilities, it becomes those appliances and then it gets stronger from them. So while Rotom on the surface isn't much, when it augments itself, when it becomes those better stats, it gains so much from just possessing an appliance, which is what it's all about. So today we're just looking at small, old, little base Rotom. There's still so many cool things behind this Pokemon that we'll talk about later on this week, that each individual Rotom form is getting its own episode, so I hope you guys look forward to that. But with Rotom right here, it's Frail Pokemon. We have 77 on both defenses and 50 on hit points, while also not being fast. Like this is something you'd expect from a sweeper, but we need more speed, we need more special attack for a true sweeper Pokemon. At this case, we do have the risk of getting outsped, we have a high chance of getting one-hit KO'd, and we don't have a lot of damage behind us. We might be able to convert some 2-hit KOs neutrally, but overall, Rotom isn't packing serious heat, and we don't care about that because we will talk about the forms. But if you want to use Rotom in a fun format, or you just really want to use regular Rotom to break the meta, you can still do a couple of cool things with it. It also has the Electric Ghost typing, which is a pretty killer typing. Normal fighting immunities from that Ghost, but it also has the Levitate ability, so you gain a ground immunity instead of that ground weakness. So it does have a lot of really good things to play with there. Also, it's a Ghost and Dark weakness just from its Ghost typing, and then a lot of resistances. Flying, Poison, Bug, Steel, and Electric. The overall typing and ability and the way Rotom comes together is pretty solid, so we can kind of take that, and instead of going straight to Pokemon Showdown, we are going to go to Bulbapedia. And we can look at Rotom's forms right here, and we can see just the pure amount of gain that Rotom has. That it only loses 5 points in speed, but then everything else is going to be better except for hit points, but the hit points don't generally change in forms anyways. But there's 80 base stat totals to gain just from gaining that appliance, from gaining that extra form, which is why Rotom is going to be more powerful in every way, and we're going to talk about that at some point. But when we just kind of consider base Rotom, not too much about it, but the actual story, the actual lore, the way that this Pokemon interacts with the game, with its forms, is what makes it a very fascinating and amazing Pokemon. I just can't stress that enough. I want you guys to appreciate that, even though we're just looking at regular Rotom. Also with Rotom in general, we don't really have too much on diversity, that we have ghost moves, we have some electric moves, we have all ranges of base power, we'll see something like a Shadow Ball, Hex, Ominous Wind, we also have Discharge, Thunderbolt, Thunder, whatever you kind of want to run, and then we have Will-O-Wisp and some other really setup kind of moves. We can psych up if we want to on Rotom, but we can also just kind of go for the direct damage. Since Rotom regular form is pretty frail, so we're not going to really expect too much craziness, but we can still pull off some trickery, and let's hop into Pokemon Showdown. Rotom needs a Focus Sash. That's going to be the first thing I say, that whenever you run Rotom, it's so frail that you're going to need the Focus Sash to pretty much accomplish anything. Now my first thought is, might as well try to play with some hacks and try to get some really cool things in your favor. So with Rotom, you can run a Modest Nature, try to get the most damage out of it, or you go Timid for the speed. With 91 speed, you shouldn't be looking to outspeed too many things, like you're not trying to command speed in any way. But at the same time, if you do go up against slower Pokemon, bulkier Pokemon, this set actually might shine against them, and that's what you want to do it for. So you lead with the Confuse Ray, and you just kind of hope for the best. Use Confuse Ray, they have a chance of hitting themselves in confusion if you're faster. Then you do the Thunder Wave, you stack the hacks, and you go for Hex. If they do chip damage themselves from the Confuse Ray, and then you land the Hex, that's going to be pretty solid damage right there. You can also consider the Will-O-Wisp. If you're running Will-O-Wisp, they hit themselves, they take burn damage, they take Hex damage, you might be able to get a KO, and if at any point they hit you once, you still survive with a Focus Sash, so you can trade a 1-for-1. You might also get an outspeed after that, get another Confuse Ray, maybe just go for the status of a Will-O-Wisp. Even if they hit through the Confusion, that gives your next Pokemon some breathing room. Your opponent might be burned, they might hit themselves, so that means your other Pokemon coming in can still benefit from your fainted Rotom. Now, if you are playing the slower game, just run the Modest Nature, and you need to kind of change up your rotation a bit. With the Thunder Wave and a Modest Nature, it means that you're going to want to use Thunder Wave first. They hit you, use Thunder Wave, now you're going faster, so you use the Confuse right there, then they have the chance of hitting themselves or getting paralyzed. You throw out the Hex. So when faster, use Confuse Ray, when slower, use Thunder Wave, and that's just going to balance it out really well. Another interesting thing you can do is bring the Pain Split. become a slight anti-sweeper that you might not efficiently be able to take out your opponent, but you just like use the pain split, that you get knocked down to 1 hit point, you use Thunder Wave, now you're faster, you pain split them, you get some health back, you're most likely going to get knocked out, but unless they like get the full paralysis, then you can convert with a Hex and probably score a KO from there. If not, you know, now there's a half health paralyzed Pokemon and Rotom is fainted, but you just bring in a Pokemon, and now you can clean up that from there, which does kind of lead to an interesting 1-for-1. It's a free 1-for-1, but you do have to give up the Rotom. Other than that, Rotom gets Trick, and you can just slap a Choice Scarf onto it. So you go with a status Trick Pokemon, you just Choice Scarf anything that doesn't want Choice Scarf, some kind of setup Pokemon, you trick that into them, then you go for the Will-O-Wisp, go for the Hex, a little bit of damage, a little bit of status, you might be able to, you know, you shut down a setup Pokemon, they switch into a Will-O-Wisp, now you got a burn, now you also kind of removed one Pokemon from the game, get a little bit of damage before you go down, Rotom can maybe get something done from there. But really, when we're talking about Rotom, in the future episodes with this little mini-series about Rotom, we're going to be looking at its tankier forms, its augmented forms, its appliance forms, whatever you want to call it. It's just going to have so many crazy options that it can pull out from there. Pain Split's going to be a big one. As a tankier Pokemon, it can use leftovers in this way, it can use Pain Split, it can get that reliable sustain, and then it also has more damage options, more time to deal damage, so that's going to be something that we're looking forward to. But overall, Rotom, not the greatest stats, but it can still pull out some cheese, it can still do some little cool things, and that works out. Remember, it's not supposed to be in this form. As a Pokemon that's trying to fend for itself, it wants to take over that freezer, wants to take over that oven, and it wants to fight in that more secured, higher base power state. At the same time, if you want to use Rotom, if you just appreciate the regular form, it still has some use, and hopefully that's what this video was there to show you for. So if you guys enjoyed this video, that's how you use Rotom, just regular Rotom, but more forms coming up, and I hope you all have a nice day. Thank you for watching.